In our next video, we're going to focus in on parasympathetic neurons specifically, and we're going to talk more about those. And we're very interested to find out which cranial nerves have parasympathetic outflow inside. So remember, parasympathetic nervous system is going to be turned on when you go into rest and digest mode. So anything that happens to your heart, lungs is going to, when you're resting, is going to be controlled by this. And your digestive system is going to be controlled by parasympathetic nervous system as well. Okay? So remember, the origin of our nerves is the brain stem or the sacral part of the spine down here. Okay? We have a very long neuron number 1, and then we have a very short neuron number 2. The neurons that are emerging from the brainstem are traveling with our cranial nerves. So in A&P1, we learned the names of the cranial nerves and we learned what they do. And I have a bit of space here, so let's just remind ourselves. Remember, cranial nerves, you number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And you can see how badly that turned out, me trying to write that. So you can imagine if I tried to write the Roman numerals, which is what we actually use, it would be even more of a disaster. So remember, we had two mnemonics. We had O, to touch and feel. Very good, velvet, right? And we had that in A&P1, and we said, this is an F, by the way, very bad mouse writing today. So we had O, to touch and feel, very good, velvet, right? And that reminded us of the first letter of the names of each of our cranial nerves, okay? Then we had a second mnemonic, and we said, some say marry money, but my brother says big brains matter most. Right? And when you looked at this, it told you, is your nerve sensory? Is your nerve motor? Or can it do both things, right? So we learned for each one, like we learned number 1 is olfactory. It is a sensory nerve that does smell. Number 2 is optic. It is a sensory nerve that does vision, right? Number 3 was called oculomotor. This was a motor-specific nerve that moves muscles. So now we're going to see that number 3, oculomotor, also has a parasympathetic neurons inside. And because it's going to the eye, the thing it controls is the constriction of your pupils. You may have noticed that if you're in a very dark room, your pupils get really wide. They dilate. So you can get enough light into your eyes to try and see, right? But if you go into really bright light, your pupils constrict, and that protects your eye and stops too much light getting in there so your retina doesn't get damaged. So oculomotor, number 3, the same one that's a motor neurons that move the muscle of the eye, also has a parasympathetic part that regulates the constriction of your pupil or the dilation of your pupil, right? So that's number 3. Now the next cranial nerve that has parasympathetic neurons is number 7. So let's go look at number 7. It's facial, and it has a B. So remember, facial does both. It does sensory from your face, and it does motor that helps move the muscles. And remember, we said a lot of the muscles of facial expression were innervated by number 7. Now you'll also see that it has a parasympathetic part to it. And all of the juices that come from your face, there's no kind of nicer way to say that, are regulated by this parasympathetic neuron that's in cranial nerve number 7. So snot from your nose, tears from your eyes, saliva, they're all regulated by parasympathetic neurons that are in cranial nerve number 7. Okay? All right, next one, number 9, it was glossopharyngeal. Glosso means tongue. Pharynx means throat, right? And again, if we look at number 9, glossopharyngeal, it's got the B. B is for both. So it does sensory stuff and it does motor stuff. So in A&P1, we talked about how number 9 was involved with moving the tongue, taste. Some of the taste receptors were coming in on number 9. And then a lot of the muscles of swallowing and chewing were innervated by number 9. So number 9, glossopharyngeal, can move the tongue, do taste, and also help with swallowing. So something that would go along with that would be the production of saliva. So number 9 also has a parasympathetic part to it that does the production of saliva from salivary glands. And if you're chewing or swallowing, saliva helps. So that makes sense that you should turn all of those things on together. All right, in A&P1, we said number 10, vagus, where we're going to talk about constantly in A&P2. And you can see why I said that. Number 10, vagus, talks to the heart. When we're talking about regulation of heartbeat, vagus is going to come up. Number 10, vagus, talks to the lungs. When we're talking about how deep you can breathe, vagus is going to come up. Number 10, vagus, talks to your liver, stomach, pancreas, intestines, everything that's involved with digestion. So when we're talking about digestive system, number 10, vagus, is going to come up. So we're going to be sick about hearing about this nerve by the end of A&P2 because it's going to come up in every chapter we're going to study. And then remember, we do have some outflow from the sacral part of the spine down here, and it's going to the genitals, it's going to the urinary bladder, and the ureters. So urinary system and reproductive system are being innervated by these neurons. So when we're doing urinary system, we'll be talking about some parasympathetic regulation and control, and when we do reproductive system, we'll be talking about that as well. So here's where your parasympathetic neurons come from. They originate in the brainstem or the sacral part of the spine.